What's up, fellas? In today's video, we're going to be talking about some more NBA trade stuff. We've started to get some rumors coming out about specific players as we get closer to this March 25th trade deadline, and this one relates to the New Orleans Pelicans, and most specifically, Lonzo Ball and Reddick. The Pelicans are a continually interesting team because they have young talent, they have these future picks, but they also have pretty much any player on their roster available to a team that wants to, really be aggressive in trading for them. Outside of Brandon Ingram and Zion Williamson, there's a lot of veterans, there's a lot of younger guys, there's a lot of guys with potential that, teams could potentially have a crack at if New Orleans, wants to potentially make a move, and that's what we talk about in today's video, specifically the Lonzo and Reddick stuff, but overall the Pelicans situation. But quickly before we get started, if you enjoy content like this, what's up? My name is Tucker. I upload NBA content here twice a day, every day, so it's a great place for consistent basketball and NBA content, so consider subscribing if that's something you're looking for. If you enjoy the video, you can also leave a like rating on it as well. Helps me out a ton, helps video get out to more people on YouTube, and really doesn't take very long at all. And if you want to hang out with me outside of these videos, there are plenty of ways to do that in a link tree down in the description below. Any social media I have is down there, and it'd be much appreciated if you would go check those out if you're interested in hanging out with me outside of these videos. But with those things said, let's go ahead and talk about the Lonzo Ball, Reddick trade stuff for New Orleans. So the Pelicans, of course, have not been great this year. They haven't necessarily been bad, but they haven't been great either. They've definitely had some down moments this season, and it's just unclear how good this roster is this season, and specifically for players like Reddick and Lonzo Ball, who are in contract years, Lonzo being restricted, JJ being unrestricted. It makes sense at this point to try and get some value out of those guys, to start putting it out there that if you're a contender, if you're a team that is looking to add pieces, Lonzo Ball and Reddick are a great place to start looking. Reddick was someone that has been on the list for a little bit, knowing coming into the season that he is an unrestricted free agent, knowing the value that he has as a shooter. And then Lonzo, who was a pretty critical piece of the Anthony Davis trade not long ago, but it's just not shown too much development in his game there in New Orleans, and the long-term commitment to Lonzo as a young guard there in New Orleans is certainly a question mark. So if you're another team and you're looking at going to get one of these guys, well, what are you looking to do? Well, let's begin with Reddick. Has had some difficulties for sure shooting the ball at times this season, but still, if there's any player in the league right now that's not a true star, that you believe in their ability to figure out the shooting stuff and to be a really good shooter for your team, it's Reddick. And of course, the questions exist about, is he going to be able to stay on the floor defensively, things like that. But if you're looking for a really high quality shooter that shouldn't require a ton in exchange and is obviously in a contract year, Reddick is a great place to start looking. Certainly getting up there in age, but any team that is looking, for any kind of floor spacing, Reddick is a guy to take a look at, and I would believe that he would have value, and I would be shocked that the Pelicans do not move him before the trade deadline, just because they're not getting any value out of him after this season, and I think he does hold at least a little bit of value to teams around the league. The more interesting case here, of course, is Lonzo, because, like I said, a relatively critical piece of the Anthony Davis trade, and has just not developed the way that New Orleans hoped that he would, and really the way that the Lakers hoped that he would throughout his first couple of seasons. The shot form itself has improved. As long as he is a good jump shooter and puts in effort defensively, he's a solid NBA guard. Now, the willingness to be anything more than that is a question mark, and we know that he's a good passer, and we know that he's a good defender. We know that if he can improve the jump shot, he's an okay player. But if you're a team that's banking on more from that for Lonzo Ball right now, I don't know if that is a realistic expectation. Now, moving forward, could he be a really, really good player? Absolutely. But I think the best case scenario for him is to go to kind of like a Markelle Fultz type situation, where Markelle Fultz's NBA career was basically over in Philadelphia, and he goes to Orlando, and he has this low pressure, he's not in LA. He's not, in this centerpiece of a rebuild in Orleans where all eyes are on him. He just, Markelle Fultz just goes to Orlando, and he just does his own thing, and he works on his game. And unfortunately, the injury that happened to him this season, kind of set all this off the rails. But Markelle Fultz was on his way to being a really, really good NBA player and just developed his game. And I think that would be a great situation for Lonzo. Just go somewhere where a team really, really needs guard help, and to the point where Lonzo is just going to play. It doesn't matter if he's really bad one night or not. He's going to be out there. He's going to be developing. He's going to be trying to get better as an NBA player, and ultimately may, succeed in doing so. So I think that's an ideal scenario for Lonzo, is to go to a team that really needs help at the guard spot. Maybe Orlando is that team, and he goes there and signs a nice little deal at the end of this season, and has a couple years to really work on and develop his game, and comes out the other side a much better player. I think that would be a pretty ideal scenario for Lonzo. Now, for the Pelicans as a whole, like I said, pretty much anybody on the roster outside of Brandon Ingram and Zion Williamson is available. Of course, they have younger guys here that they are partially moving Lonzo and possibly moving Lonzo and JJ to make room for guys like Nickeil Alexander-Walker. And, you know, those guys aren't necessarily available for trade, but if you really want to, I mean, I think they would certainly take calls on anybody right now because they're really uncertain about their roster and about their future outside of Zion and Brandon Ingram. So, you know, keep an eye on not only Lonzo and JJ, but pretty much the entire roster outside of those two guys, whether it be, you know, trying to get future value in addition to all the other future value they already have, whether it be young players or picks, but also I think the possibility still exists. With David Griffin there in the front office, he has shown a willingness to continue to play the middle here and not just go into full tank mode, but to go and get guys like JJ a couple years ago. Go and get someone like Steven Adams. Go and get someone like Eric Bledsoe in the Drew Holiday trade, where you're always kind of, you're at least decent. You're not completely awful. And with that mindset, you could argue that this team is one big time move away from being a legitimate team, maybe a Bradley Beal trade away from being really good. I mean, if you think about that, and maybe, you know, you send some young guys and a ton of picks to Washington, and, you know, you get back Bradley Beal, and suddenly it's like Bledsoe, Beal, Ingram, Williamson, Steven Adams, other guys off the bench. Suddenly that looks like a really, really good team. Now, scoring isn't necessarily a huge issue for New Orleans. They're not a great scoring team, but the biggest issue for them long term in terms of the kind of ceiling that they're going to have is the defensive potential and the defensive energy put in by Brandon Ingram and Zion Williamson most specifically. But if you just look at that five, like that's a really, really good group. So with New Orleans as a whole, as much as it seems like they're going to start selling off players and they're going to start trying to get future value so they can play these younger guys and they can kind of play for the future, I would not put it past them, whether it's Beal, whether it's whoever, to go out and get somebody that helps them in the present as well, because we've seen it happen multiple times. We've seen the Steven Adams thing. We've seen the Eric Bledsoe thing. We've seen them hold on to Drew Holiday for longer than a lot of people thought that they would. And those are all things to keep an eye on. And kind of piggybacking off that Drew Holiday thing, another thing to keep in mind here for New Orleans, as always, is David Griffin is notoriously, and I think to his credit, patient about these types of things. We saw how long they waited on the Anthony Davis thing. They got a great haul for Anthony Davis. They waited on the Drew Holiday thing for a long time and really capitalized on the leverage that they created by a desperation to bring in Drew Holiday, and got a ton of value out of him as well. And so if there's anything we know about David Griffin, is if he wants to move these two guys before the deadline this year, I wouldn't be surprised if it happens on like the 24th or on deadline day. Like, he is going to work through as many possibilities to try and get as much value as he possibly can. So even though it's nice that these rumors are coming out, we're finally starting to get a little bit of trade stuff, I wouldn't be overly excited about Lonzo being traded tomorrow. Like, they're going to be patient. They're going to get the best value they can. They're not going to be in a hurry. And that is one thing that we know above all else in New Orleans, is David Griffin is A, going to get a lot of value for these guys, and B, he is going to take his time. And ultimately, that is what is going to point this team in the right direction long term and moving forward. If the players they currently have buy in, and just the ability of this front office to continue to add value after value after value, and potentially, as I mentioned, cash in on that value as well at some point. But that is going to be the end of the second video of today. I thank you guys very much for watching. If you missed the first video of the day, I talked about some Bradley Beal stuff, talking about, you know, his trade possibilities, why he hasn't been moved from Washington just yet. So if you missed that, you can check out that video from earlier today. As I said in the beginning, my name is Tucker. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, there's much more like it. You can sub to the channel, you can check out the channel, you can also leave a like rating on the video as well, as I said in the beginning. And that link tree is still down in the description below, where you can check out all the socials that I have to hang out with me outside of these videos. With all those things said, hope you guys have an awesome rest of your day, and I will see you all next time.